This morning I'm wearing my monastic habit instead of my usual diaconal vestments because I want to talk to you about my other vocation as a professed sister of the Anam Cara Fellowship. This Sunday is designated as Religious Life Sunday, and many parishes will have members of religious communities in the pulpit, as I am, or leading special programs about religious life. According to Sister Ellen Francis of the Order of St. Helena, religious communities are the best kept secret in the Episcopal Church. There are two types of religious communities. The first are called religious orders, and they're comprised of men and women who live in community, give up all their possessions, and live under a vow of poverty and are celibate. Unfortunately, these orders are shrinking in membership, and I believe there are less than 10 left in the United States and Canada. The Anam Cara Fellowship is a dispersed community, which is the other type of religious community. We have a Celtic spirit, and we're part of a group known as Episcopal Christian Communities. Members of these communities live in their own homes, are self-supporting, and most permit members to be either married or in committed partnerships. Well, I don't know how the other communities have developed, but I'd like to tell you about the creation of the Anam Cara Fellowship. Convents, monasteries, and homes of religious orders in England were closed during the reign of Henry VIII. In the 19th century, there was a movement to reassert apostolic and Catholic heritage as a church called the Oxford Movement. This led to the founding of new religious orders in England. They were mostly for women. And in time, these religious orders sent members to the USA to open convents or group homes and to seek new members. The St. Margaret Society was one of the first to come to the USA. It was a nursing order that started in England and later came to Boston. The Reverend Charles Grafton, rector of the Church of Advent in Boston, became their chaplain. After a few years, he felt called to start another religious order. And under his leadership, 3 sisters and 3 novices left St. Margaret's to establish the new order, the Sisterhood of the Holy Nativity, now often known as SHN. This new order eventually moved from Boston to Providence, Rhode Island, and finally to Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, because Father Grafton had been named the Bishop of Fond du Lac. Fast forward to the 1970s. A young woman named Sister Barbara Jean Brown joined the Sisterhood of the Holy Nativity. She was sent out to do youth work and lead retreats in many places, including West Virginia and other states, and later to lead a retreat house in California. In the 1990s, Sister Julian Wilson, who had been a pharmacist, joined SHN, and she and Sister BJ began working and worshiping together. When the membership of SHN began to shrink, Sister BJ and Sister Julian felt called to form a new kind of religious order, and they came to Delaware, where Sister BJ accepted a position as Christian ed leader at Christ Church Christiana 100, and Sister Julian trained as a hospital chaplain, and she worked for many years at Christiana Care. In 2003, our current bishop at that time, Wayne Wright, took Sister BJ and Sister Julian's vows and gave them permission to form a religious community. I was one of the first novices and was professed in 2006. The Anam Cara Fellowship strives to be an inclusive community, including all genders, clergy and lay, married, single, or partnered, and we all live in our own homes and must be self-supporting. Our ministries are in the areas of Christian education, pastoral care, and spiritual direction. Currently, we have 40 professed members, 5 novices, and 6 in various steps moving toward profession. We are also supported by 20 companions of the fellowship who support us with prayer, and many participate in our other activities. We had started off as a small group meeting in Delaware, and we now have folks from many states, coast to coast, including Hawaii. And we have one professed sister who lives in Scotland, and a professed brother, and 3 novices in Brazil. We meet each June for our annual gathering at a retreat center near Detroit, Michigan. This is our annual family reunion when we worship, study, and have time to visit with each other. Some of our members are now able to be with us via Zoom because they can no longer travel. And we use Zoom a lot for our daily offices and for other necessary meetings. Those living in traditional religious orders generally live in a convent or monastery, and their days are organized around the daily offices: morning prayer, noonday prayer, evening prayer, compline. And in between the times of prayer, each does their assigned work. Their housing, food, clothing, medical care, etc., are all provided by the order, and their main calling is to a life of prayer. Remember that, a life of prayer. Dispersed religious communities face different challenges. Our Anam Cara fellowship vows are simplicity, fidelity, and obedience. And our vows require us to say morning or evening prayer and compline each day. There's no bell to remind us it's time to pray, so each of us must establish our own daily pattern for prayer. Since the pandemic, many of us have formed Zoom groups for prayer. I'm part of a group of about 8 who join for evening prayer every day. Most of this group lives in the Eastern or Central time zones. But later in the evening, I join with brothers and sisters from across the country to play compline. You may be wondering why I feel called to be part of a religious community while I'm already ordained into the diaconate. Well, when I first felt called to be a deacon, there was no program for deacons in this diocese. Bishop promised some time, but it took a while. During this period, the diocese had a companion relationship with the Diocese of Argyll and Isles in the Scotland. And I was lucky to go on the diocesan pilgrimage to Northumbria and Scotland. And I fell in love with Celtic spirituality. About this time, the Anam Cara Fellowship was founded, and I was immediately drawn to its Celtic spirit. Well, a few years later, the program for deacons was finally developed, and I was able to become a deacon. But my Anam Cara Fellowship was my support during that period and continues to be so every day. Well, I'm not here today to recruit members for the Anam Cara Fellowship or any other religious community, but I'm happy to tell you about ours and others. I have information. If you'd be interested, see me after the service. The heart of the work of religious orders and communities is prayer. That's the key word, prayer. We live in uncertain times, so we lift up our world, our country, our people, and all people in our daily prayers. I particularly love Celtic prayers and want to close with a Caim, which is a fancy name for a circling prayer. And it calls for the presence and protection of the Holy Trinity. God with me lying down, God with me rising up, God with me in each ray of light, nor a ray of joy without him, nor one ray without him. Christ with me sleeping, Christ with me waking, Christ with me watching each day and each night, each day and each night. God with me protecting, the Lord with me directing, the Spirit with me strengthening, forever and evermore, ever and evermore. Amen.